For all intents and purposes, there are 3 paths to victory that Donald Trump can take in order to still win this election. We're going to run them down from very, very unlikely to slightly more unlikely to still unlikely, but probably the best of the 3. First and foremost, we had from over the weekend when General Flynn was talking at one of the Jericho marches there. He was out there saying that President Trump should enact a partial martial law. I know that rhymes and it sounds fucking hysterical, but yeah, well, at least hear this out, because it is one path, and I was mistaken. It wasn't this past weekend. It was December 2nd when this was published, and it's weird. It's weird, right? Former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn shared a message calling on President Trump to invoke martial law and have the military hold a new election. Theoretically, Trump could do this, okay? It's about as likely as Joe Biden packing out a hockey arena for a rally, but it's something he could do. It is within his purview as president. The message was an ad from a right-wing activist group asking Trump to declare limited martial law to temporarily suspend the Constitution in order to have the military implement a national revote that reflects the true will of the people. Listen, in my most wildest Pinochet helicopter dreams, I would love to consider this to be an option, but oh my god. Okay. For as much as left-wing media, I should stop saying left-wing, I should just say all media at this point, loves to paint Donald Trump as being this unshakable dictator, and he's just going to do whatever he can to cling to power, and as you can see right now, him fighting all of these lawsuits in court there, he's just losing left, right, and center, and nothing's going to come out of this. And in the next video, we're going to take a look at a couple of different breaking lawsuits, because guess what? Today, just because the electors met, once again, it's kind of like the safe harbor date. It means fuck all in the actual process, but we got some new information, but that's coming in the next video. This is the 3 paths to victory, and this one, like I said, is not very likely, and we gotta see why that is. Former National Security Advisor, did he ever really assume the position, or was he forced out because he was tried under the Logan Act and then had to plead guilty to trumped up charges that they didn't even, and they were, Peter Strzok and the rest of the FBI were not too certain if he was actually lying about to begin with, and that whole fucking saga's finally ended. He's pardoned. It's all swept under the rug, and the Judge Sullivan had to issue, I think it was, a 32 or 42 page ruling on the matter. Self-indulgence knows no bounds for certain judges. But anyways, yeah, back to this. Shared in an ad this week calling for President Donald Trump to suspend the Constitution, declare martial law, and have a military hold a new election. The ad came from Tom Zazkowski. Sure. Isn't he the brother of the little eyeball from Monsters, Inc.? I don't know. Sounds about right. The president of the right-wing Ohio activist group, We the People Convention. I'm sure they're probably, just terrible people. Or, they're actual legitimate constitutional originalists, not like Barrett, Gorsuch, and Kavanaugh. Those weak-willed sacks of shit. Hopefully you enjoy your new chambermates once Biden packs the courts. In the ad, Zazkowski asked Trump to exercise the extraordinary powers of his office and declare limited martial law to temporarily suspend the Constitution and civilian control of these federal elections in order to have the military implement a national revote that reflects the true will of the people. I've said that I've kind of hoped that some of these lawsuits would result in the election being done over again, where we just have an all-in-person vote. This takes that idea and puts it to its most extreme ends. I like the outcome, but the means of getting there seem a little fantastical, and this idea, if I'm to put it on a scale of 1 to 10, probably has a 0.25% chance of actually winning, so don't count on this one. And here's one that I've also seen floated around a few times, and a lot of people are reporting on it, and I thought I'd add my 2 cents onto it. This is the executive order, and Sidney Powell has also called this out, and in all fairness, it's a little bit more likely. It's still not highly possible. I still think that this is, by all means, just another terrible optics decision if Trump was actually to invoke this, but once again, he signed it into law. Nobody contested it until it started to become more known to the public, because there are a ton of executive orders out there, okay? I think Trump has signed 75 during his time in office. It's still a lot less than Obama, but I'm sorry, I just pulled it up here, and as you can see, Clinton's far and away ahead, 364, W at 291, Barack at 276, and Trump at an even cool 200. So, and that's just one term, so T-Money was making the best use of his executive order powers. But now that that's out of the order, this is the one that we're going to focus on. That would be executive order that was signed in September of 2018. Now, this one's making the rounds because it makes claims that if there's any foreign interference in certain elections, there are certain liberties that the president can take. I, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America, find that the ability of persons located in whole or in substantial part outside the United States to interfere or undermine public confidence in United States elections sounds about right, including through the unauthorized accessing of election and campaign infrastructure or to covert distribution of propaganda and disinformation. If only CNN was headquartered in another country. Constitutes an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security and foreign policy of the United States, although there has been no evidence of the foreign power altering the outcome or vote tabulation in the United States election. Foreign powers have historically sought to exploit America's free and open political system. 2016, Russia hacked the election. All of those videos are still up and not under question because they come from one side of the aisle. But this time, asking any questions about the election is immediately stupid, right? Remember, Joe Biden is the most popular politician of all time. In recent years, the proliferation of digital devices and internet-based communications have created significant vulnerabilities and maligned the scope and intensity of the threat of foreign interference, as illustrated in the 2017 Intelligence Community Assessment. I hereby declare a national emergency to deal with this threat. If he were to invoke this executive order, that is not meaning that any national emergency is being called in regards to this. We're just going to go over the hot points here and then summarize it up at the end. So Section 1, not later than a 45-day after the conclusion of the United States election, the Director of National Intelligence, in consultation with the heads of any other appropriate executive departments and agencies, shall conduct an assessment of any information indicating that the foreign government or any person acting as an agent of or on behalf of a foreign government has acted with the intent of purpose or interfering in that election. The assessment shall identify to the maximum extent ascertainable the nature of any foreign interference and any method employed to execute the persons involved and the foreign government or governments that authorized, directed, sponsored, or supported it. The Director of National Intelligence shall deliver the assessment and appropriate supporting information to the President, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of Defense, Attorney General, and the Secretary of Homeland Security. And you know what? Now is a good time to bring up that Attorney General Bill Barr, who will probably get discussed in another video because we got all the topics kind of lined up here today. He's actually going to be stepping down before Christmas. Can't say I'm going to shed a tear now. If this was in fact the case not but a few weeks ago, I would have been a lot more upset because I was duped into thinking that the dude was actually on the level, but when he knew of the Hunter Biden investigation and purposefully kept it quiet prior to the election, I lost all sympathy or any sort of credibility in my mind. So there is a new Attorney General stepping in, by the way. Jeff Rosen, who is Deputy Attorney General, is going to become Acting Attorney General in the interim between the potential end of Donald Trump's term and when Barr steps down. It is actually a very nicely worded letter. It thanks him for the opportunity to come in and backstab him. I mean, serve under his administration. Thanks him for the opportunity to pursue claims of election integrity, gives him kudos for Operation Warp Speed, and also takes a nice shot at China there at the end. But as of December 23rd, Barr's going to be stepping down so he can enjoy the new federal holiday of Christmas Eve and Christmas Day with his family. And you know what? Thanks for some things and thanks for nothing, Barr. But so in regards to Section 1 here, okay, so the new Attorney General is not going to be taking place before the end of the 45-day window where President Trump can enact this executive order. So Barr would still be in place. Okay, he has until Friday. Friday would be the end of that window, so something has to be filed before Friday in order for anything to really take effect. But like I said before, there's a very limited chance that this actually happens. But John Ratcliffe, who is in charge of National Intelligence, he's the Director of National Intelligence. He is in fact preparing something in regards to widespread fraud or whatever, but The report's got to come out in the next couple of days. He says it's supposed to, so I don't know. Like I said, it's more likely than Trump calling for martial law and a revote, but still not fucking likely. Within 45 days of receiving the assessment and information described in Section 1A of this order, the Attorney General and the Secretary of Homeland Security, in consultation with the heads of any other appropriate agencies and appropriate state and local officials, shall deliver to the President, the Secretary of State, Secretary of Treasury, Defense, a report evaluating the respect of the United States election that is subject to the assessment described in Section 1A to the extent that foreign interference that targeted election infrastructure materially affected the security or integrity of the infrastructure, the tabulation of votes, or the timely transmission of election results. I would say some of this stuff seems like it would fit into that description, but that might be as far as YouTube allows me to say that, but I will tell you that there are certain allegations out there that sure as fuck fit that description. Or how about number 2? If any foreign interference involves activities targeting the infrastructure or pertaining to a political organization, campaign, or candidate to the extent which such activities materially affected the security or integrity of that infrastructure, including by authorizing access to, disclosure, or threatened disclosure of, or alteration or falsification of information or data. Based on what we've already seen, sounds like another check mark in the that fits category. So here's the next important part. All property and interests in the property that are in the United States that hereafter come within the United States or that are or hereafter, fucking legalese, come within the possession or control of any United States person or the following persons are blocked and may not be transferred, paid, exported, withdrawn, or otherwise dealt in any foreign persons determined by the Secretary of the Treasury in consultation with the Secretary of State, Attorney General, and the Secretary of Homeland Security to have directly or indirectly engaged in, sponsored, concealed, or otherwise been complicit in foreign interference in the United States election. If you are to agree with the allegations brought forth by Linwood and Sidney Powell that all the votes were counted in Germany and there was Venezuelan stuff, that would fit the bill. Granted that some of those voting machines were connected illegally to the internet, we don't necessarily know if they've been counted or had anything to do with Germany or wherever they're alleging that the votes were counted, but at the same time, we're not allowed to see any of that information because it just keeps getting fucking tossed out the side door. So once again, anything that has to do with foreign adversaries meddling in elections. So all in all, there needs to be concrete evidence that there was foreign interference that directly affected the outcome of the election. And if that has occurred, this executive order can be executed in order to nullify the results of that election. Now, because none of the evidence is ever being viewed in a court of law, not being properly vetted, it is next to impossible to properly invoke this executive order. I think it was mostly done for show because this was done prior to the 2018 midterms. It is something that showed explicit intent to take those very seriously, but that was when the trial run in Arizona that led to Kyrsten Sinema becoming the first Democratic senator in what would become a pair out of Arizona. So needless to say, it was all just kind of a show, but that was all domestic, and that's where most of the fraud, if anything did so occur, wink wink, nudge nudge, happened. It was all with mail-in balloting. But here's what we got the most likely. And when I say most likely, I mean still a fucking long shot. Like last play of the game, you're down by 8. You need to complete a 50-yard Hail Mary followed by a 2-point conversion just to tie type of long shot. But as we see here today, thanks to Politico, the Electoral College affirms Biden's victory, and old Bazooka Joe there is officially the president-elect. That is not the case because the vote takes place January 6th, so he'll be able to parade behind his fucking Office of the President-elect banner for that amount of time before it probably eventually becomes official. Listen, this is highly unlikely that any of this shit is going to happen. I'm still holding out hope, though. Very much would like to see President Trump immediately get a second term, because I think the outcome of this election, if nobody's looking at the evidence and nobody else is talking about this, or at least the people that I listen to and do my research of, are seeming to forget that when they figure out they, meaning the Democrats, realized that this election went off without a hitch, that mail-in voting is totally 100% secure, and there was no evidence of widespread voter fraud during this election. What is going to stop them from continuing to do mail-in balloting for every election going forward? Listen, it's probably going to happen in the runoff in Georgia for those 2 Senate seats. Don't be surprised, because Raffensperger, what's his name there, Juventud Guerrera, who's the election specialist, and Brian Kemp isn't going to do fuck all. So expecting something fair to happen out there is probably highly unlikely, but I would still say go in and vote in person. If my message manages to reach anybody in Georgia, I'd be shocked, but very thankful. But as you can see here, Politico says it's all said and done. Joe Biden won. That is 100% the case. The Electoral College officially voted on Monday to make Joe Biden the 46th president of the United States, formalizing his victory under constitutional procedure and dashing President Donald Trump's long-shot hopes of reversing the 2020 election results. Unless you turn your head slightly to the right and you realize that Republican electors in Pennsylvania, Georgia cast votes for Trump hoping for court victories. What they're doing with this is they're keeping open the possibility that the electors, the GOP sent electors, can be certified over the Democratic sent ones. Okay? This happened before in 1960, which was the last instance of a very, very, very corrupt election, by the way. And I desperately wanted to do a video specifically on that, but long story short, we could have saved ourselves the craziness of 1970s Richard Nixon if he would have fairly won the 1960 election, if not for the mob, because that was the last time a Republican won Ohio and Florida and managed to lose the election. So what this is doing here, I'll be brief, and not so brief that we don't quite understand everything. It says here in this Fox News headline, and they are already out of date, and that's why I don't bother turning off my ad blocker for Fox News and still have that little banner down there, because fuck them, is because it's not only Pennsylvania and Georgia. By God, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, and New Mexico. Remember when Giuliani said something about that? I think that was at the infamous hair dye press conference where he said that, hey, like things are happening in places you wouldn't expect, like New Mexico. And I guess that's finally coming out because there's also a lawsuit that's going to be filed in New Mexico. We'll get to that in the second video because this one's already going to be long enough. And this is just going over the 3 paths to victory, like I said. So this is keeping those electors going to Washington on the 6th. So when the actual votes from the Electoral College are counted, if there are lawsuits that are successful, not saying there will be because it seems like every fucking judge just heave-hose them out of the fucking courtroom, that the results for the Democrat electors can be decertified and they can be certified and counted if there's any late-breaking information that comes out by January 6th. But let's get to the official, reliable sources as according to YouTube. While Democratic electors in Pennsylvania and Georgia cast their states' electoral votes for Joe Biden on Monday, slates of Republican electors in those states cast votes for President Donald Trump, just in case legal challenges succeed. The Pennsylvania GOP said that in a press release that the Trump campaign asked the Republican electors to do this in order to preserve any potential rights to legal challenges that could overturn Monday's vote. The Trump campaign and other Republicans have claimed that elections in the states included Pennsylvania and Georgia ran afoul of state laws compromising the ballot counts. I would think so. I would think so, based on what we've seen. But what we've seen is actually always been debunked because that's the normal counting procedure, like kicking everybody out of the State Farm Arena except for 4 people who just want to run ballots until they're fucking blue in the face. But that's totally normal, right? Ugh. We took the procedural vote to preserve any legal claim that may be presented going forward, Trump campaign Pennsylvania Chair Bernie Comfort, said in a statement. This is in no way an effort to usurp or contest the will of the Pennsylvania voters. It is merely keeping the opportunity for the election lawsuits alive. Because if they didn't do this, it would all just be moot. There would go from the scenario that I laid out there at the end of the football game to, try to overturn the results of the first fucking Super Bowl. And like I mentioned earlier, the Pennsylvania Republican Party said they drew inspiration from the 1960 election, which Democrats challenged President Richard Nixon's victory in Hawaii. Democratic electors, he wasn't the president at the time. That was the first time that he ran. It was against, Kennedy. So then let's fact check Fox on the fly here. Democratic electors submitted a conditional vote for John F. Kennedy. After a recount, Kennedy was declared the winner of the state. Oh, isn't it funny we should bring up a recount? And because we already said Georgia's Secretary of State orders, after that very rude interruption, let's reset. Georgia's Secretary of State orders ballot signature match audit in Cobb County. Brad Raffensperger, a Republican, oh, it's so funny he wants to still use that tag, said his goal in ordering an audit was to make our elections accurate and secure and believed by voters. Well, why don't you do places like DeKalb County or Fulton County, places that were actually under investigation where all of those videos came from. But you know what? Yeah, we're going to do Cobb County because that wasn't one of the counties that was highly questioned. Anyways, Georgia's Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger said Monday that officials will conduct a signature matching audit of absentee ballot envelopes in Cobb County, a move that comes after weeks of pressure from Donald Trump and his supporters. Raffensperger, a Republican, said his goal in ordering the audit was to make our elections accurate and secure and believed by voters. A little too late on that one, pal. The audit will check whether signatures on absentee ballot envelopes match signature records among registered voters in the county. Now that the signature matching has been attacked again and again with no evidence, I feel like we need to take steps to restore confidence in our elections, Raffensperger said at a press conference. What a fucking mealy-mouthed little fuck. Starting immediately, we are pulling all of our resources together with GBI to conduct a signature match audit in Cobb County. The audit will not include a review of signatures on absentee ballots. It's fucking useless. It's totally useless. All they're going to do is just check and make sure that fucking ballots were signed. So, fuck off. Just another ceremonial fucking audit. So, don't expect anything to come out of that. And if there does manage to have something coming out of that, that would be a significant fuck up on Raffensperger's part. So it's nice to see that, but as we can see here, there are three paths forward. There is martial law, not gonna fucking happen. There's executing that 2018 executive order, more likely than the first option, but still highly unlikely. And then there is the ongoing lawsuits with the disputed electors. More likely, still not likely, but the most likely. Something has definitely got to come out of this, okay? I don't know if we go until this entire election cycle is over and nobody still looks at any of the evidence and then just carry all of this into 2024 where it's like, okay, there was widespread voter fraud. Well, it's not even widespread anymore. It's just more or less targeted. It's like, take a look at Pennsylvania, take a look at Detroit, take a look at Atlanta, Maricopa County, Clark County in Nevada. But we'll see here too, because you guys remember, I think that was a couple days ago when I said Rudy Giuliani was looking at retooling a couple of those lawsuits with all of these electors, the disputed electors going to the House on January 6th. All of these lawsuits can still go out, and hey, who knows, on the off chance that SCOTUS is feeling extra perky one day, they might take up one of these lawsuits that might be coming, but the week is still very, very young, so we got a lot of shit to cover here in the next couple of videos, and the next one's going to be about late-breaking shit having to do with Dominion and other voter fraud type things, so... Anyways, guys, I thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.